Welcome to my presentation on the title Chemical Attacks in the Syrian Civil War, which is part of my assignment in Professional Ethics Engineering. Let's move into the presentation about the Syrian War. The Syrian War is a complex and a devastating conflict that began in 2011 amid the wave of uprisings known as the Arab Spring. It initially started as a peaceful protest movement against the authoritarian regime of President Bashar al-Assad, but quickly escalated into a full-scale armed conflict. One of the most notable chemical attacks occurred in August 2013 in the suburbs of Damascus, known as Ghouta chemical attack, where hundreds of people were injured. And it is to be noted that thousands were injured when rockets containing sarin gas were fired into residential areas. Use of chemical weapons. The Syrian government has been accused of using chemical agents such as sarin, chlorine gas, and mustard gas against both opposition forces and civilian populations. These attacks have resulted in numerous casualties, including civilians, women, and children. The aftermath of the war. Humanitarian impact. Severe physical and psychological harm to victims. There were many respiratory problems, blindness, and long-term health complications to the casualties. And when it comes to casualties and displacement, significant civilian casualties were there, which includes both women and children, and there were people who were further displaced from the affected areas to a very safe zone, let's say. Next is about the international condemnation. There were widespread condemnations from different governments and organizations, and there was an emphasis on the illegality of chemical weapons under international law. Military and diplomatic responses. There were retaliatory airstrikes against Syrian government targets, and diplomatic efforts were taken through United Nations and through peace treaties. Global level action. Prevention and deterrence. The use of chemical weapons is a violation of international law, and it was observed that specifically the chemical weapons, it was observed specifically by the Chemical Weapons Convention, which prohibits the development, production, stockpiling, and use of chemical weapons. The ongoing use of chemical weapons in Syria has sparked outrage and uh, and calls for accountability and justice for victims. Let's now take a look at the death toll. According to SOHR, which is Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, it is documented that there were deaths for about 5,03,064 people as of March 2023. It is said that at least 1,62,390 civilians have been killed, and with the Syrian government and its allies responsible for 1,39,609 deaths. Ethical issues concerning the war. The ethical issues are put up at the slide, which goes like protection of civilians, use of chemical weapons, humanitarian access and aid, responsibility to protect, arms sales and military support, refugee crisis and global responsibility. These ethical issues were lacking, and which were lacking in the war, and these ethical issues has to be implemented, or these ethical uh, attributes has to be included in our day-to-day life by any government so as to maintain peace and prosperity among the people. Now we'll move to conclusion. The war is not just a regional conflict but a global humanitarian crisis demanding a collective response that required sustained diplomatic engagement, support for humanitarian efforts, and a renewed focus on finding inclusive and sustainable solutions. So it's a high time that we must act very carefully to prevent such disasters. So opportunity. Thank you.